Story 1: The Graveyard Clock. The wind always seemed louder at night, like it knew there were fewer ears to hear it. At Halston General Hospital, the wind scraped along the windows with a kind of manic persistence, dragging its icy fingers across the glass like it was searching for a way in. Isaac barely noticed anymore. He'd been working the graveyard shift for 8 months straight, security guard, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 6 days a week. The hospital had downsized after the merger, and with half the security team let go, he was often the only one on duty. His routine was mindless: monitor the cameras, walk the halls twice an hour, radio in every 30 minutes, pretend nothing about the place freaked him out. But it did. It wasn't just the stillness, though the silence of a mostly darkened hospital at night was unsettling enough. It was something deeper. A presence. Something that watched from places the security cameras didn't reach. An emptiness in the building that didn't feel empty at all. Isaac glanced up at the monitor bank. Most showed empty corridors, pale walls and flickering fluorescence. But something caught his eye on camera 12. It was the ICU wing, the far end where old room 304 had been sealed off for years after a fire. No one went in or out. There were even signs posted: "Do not enter, structurally unsafe." But the monitor showed movement. A figure. Just a glimpse, someone turning a corner, a white gown, long hair. He blinked, leaning forward. The screen flickered, static crackled across it, and when it cleared, the corridor was empty again. "Come on," he muttered, tapping the button to rewind the feed. Static. Error. Feed unavailable. Isaac grabbed his flashlight and his keys, cinching his jacket around him. "Just a glitch," he said out loud, as if speaking could ward off the chill crawling over his skin. He keyed his radio. "Control, this is Isaac. Heading to East ICU to check out a camera malfunction on 12. Probably nothing." Static answered him. Then a soft hiss. And then, "Don't let it see you." Isaac froze. "Who is this?" he barked into the mic. No reply. The ICU was on the 4th floor, far from where he sat in the security hub in the basement. It meant taking the freight elevator, the old one that always groaned like it was in pain. He hesitated, fingers hovering over the call button. That voice, it hadn't sounded like anyone on staff. It sounded like a child. A whisper caught in static. He pressed the button. The elevator opened slowly with a moan. "Let's get this over with," he muttered, stepping inside. As the doors creaked closed, the light inside flickered. The panel lit up, but instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, it showed only a single red number. 1. Isaac frowned. He hadn't pressed anything yet. The elevator began to descend. He slammed the open door button. Nothing happened. The lights dimmed. "Wrong way," he whispered. The elevator groaned, then stopped. The doors opened into darkness. Something moved just beyond the threshold. He didn't step out. Something stepped in. Isaac's breath hitched. The figure was just a silhouette, tall, vaguely human, but off. Wrong proportions. Shoulders too narrow. Arms too long. And it didn't step like a person. It slid. He stumbled backward into the corner of the elevator, frantically mashing the closed door button. The lights overhead dimmed to a sickly yellow glow as the figure crossed the threshold. Its feet, or where feet should have been, made no sound against the elevator floor. There was no weight, no breath. Just cold. Then came the smell. It hit him like a wave, rot and mold and hospital antiseptic. His stomach twisted, bile rising in his throat. Get out," he shouted, pulling his flashlight from his belt with shaking hands. He aimed the beam straight at the thing. For a second, it hesitated. The light caught its face. No eyes. Just smooth, stretched flesh where features should have been. The outline of a mouth trembled in the skin, like it wanted to scream but couldn't. Isaac screamed instead. The elevator doors finally clanged shut and jolted upward. The figure didn't move, didn't react, just stood there, inches from him, facing him. The space between them felt suffocating. Isaac pressed his back to the wall, flashlight shaking violently in his grip. "This isn't real," he muttered. "Just a hallucination. I'm sleep-deprived, it's stress, it's—" The elevator lurched to a stop. The doors slid open again. 4th floor. ICU. The figure was gone. The air smelled normal. No rot. No mold. Just cold, sterile disinfectant and quiet hums from equipment behind closed doors. Isaac bolted out and nearly tripped over a yellow caution sign. He spun around. The elevator doors shut behind him as if nothing had happened. His radio crackled. "Isaac? You there? You didn't report at the half hour." He grabbed it. Yeah, I'm here. Something's wrong. I saw." He stopped. What the hell could he even say? "A trespasser, maybe. I'm checking the East ICU wing now." A pause. "Be careful," came the reply. But it wasn't the usual guy on night dispatch. It sounded older. Slower. Like the words came from someone who didn't entirely remember how to speak. Isaac's grip tightened on the radio. He moved down the hallway, past rows of patient rooms, all empty. Curtains pulled back. Monitors blinking softly. And then, at the end of the corridor, room 304. The door was ajar. He raised the flashlight, approached slowly. The tape over the door had been peeled away, curling like old paper. His boots made no sound on the linoleum. The closer he got, the more the silence thickened. He reached out and nudged the door open with the edge of his light. Inside was a clock. Old. Ornate. A grandfather clock too large for the space, standing where the bed should have been. Its pendulum ticked slowly, out of rhythm. The hands pointed at 304. And the walls? The walls were covered in photos. Polaroids, thousands of them, pinned with rusted tacks. All of them were of the same room, room 304. In each picture, someone different stood beside the clock. Sometimes it was a nurse. Sometimes a patient. Sometimes a security guard. Isaac stepped closer. His eyes scanned the rows, heart pounding. Then he found one. It was him, standing beside the clock. Mouth open, as if screaming. Eyes missing. Isaac recoiled, stumbling backward. His flashlight swung wildly, casting warped shadows across the room. He stared at the photo, willing it to be someone else. Maybe just someone who looked like him. Same uniform, same haircut, same build. But he recognized that scar above the left eyebrow. The one he got at 12 falling off a bike. His voice cracked. "What the hell is this?" The pendulum in the clock let out a deep clang, the first real sound in the room. It vibrated through the floor and into his feet, cold and ancient. The hands moved. Just a second's jump. Still pointed to 304. But now the ticking had grown louder, echoing inside his skull. Isaac reached for the Polaroid with trembling fingers. The photo was warm. Fresh. He turned it over. Faded pencil scrawl on the back. "Don't let it see you scream." He spun around. The door was shut. He hadn't closed it. Something creaked behind him. He turned just as the air grew impossibly cold. The pendulum ticked once more, slower than before, but heavier. Each swing seemed to bend the space around it. Then he heard it. Breathing. Not his own. Shallow, wet, behind him. He froze. His instincts screamed to run, but his legs refused. A primal, childlike terror took over, like hiding under the blankets from a monster, but knowing the blankets weren't thick enough to save you. In the reflection of the clock's glass pane, he saw it. The same faceless figure from the elevator. Standing right behind him. Taller now. Closer. Its skin quivered like thin plastic stretched too tight. A mouth began to form where there hadn't been one. Just enough for lips to part. Just enough to show a crack of blackness. And then it whispered. Tick-tock. Isaac ran. He slammed into the door, flung it open, and sprinted into the hallway, not daring to look back. The sound of the pendulum followed him. Clang, 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 though he was now halfway down the corridor. Lights above him buzzed and flickered. Some popped, showering glass. The hallway blurred. Every turn looked the same. He made it to the stairwell and took them two at a time, nearly tripping as he descended. Down past the third floor. Second. First. Basement. He hit the door and shoved through. And found himself staring at room 304 again. Same door. Same hallway. He backed away slowly. No. No. I ran. A second pendulum clang echoed. He turned. And behind him was the clock. Right in the hallway. Ticking. Waiting. The door to 304 creaked open without him touching it. A light flicked on inside. He wasn't alone. And something was calling him by name. His name slithered out of the open door, soft and sickly sweet, like honey poured over rot. It didn't echo. It settled. In his ears. In his throat. In his bones. He staggered back against the wall, heart hammering. No, he whispered. No, no, no. But his legs moved anyway. Not entirely his own. Like something had hooked into his muscles, tugging him forward. The light inside room 304 flickered like candle flame. Unnatural, golden. He stepped across the threshold again, breath hitching in his chest. The room had changed. The walls were no longer lined with photos. The clock was gone. In its place was a hospital bed. Rusted. Buckled legs. Sheets yellowed with age. Something lay beneath the blanket. Isaac's flashlight dimmed to a glow. He looked down. His radio was fried, melted at the edges. His ID badge was gone. The bed moved. A body shifted beneath the sheet. Then a hand slid out, gray, thin-skinned, twitching like a dying insect. He stood frozen. The figure under the blanket whispered, I remember you. No, Isaac said again. No. I've never. It remembers you. The voice croaked, warbling with static and breathless wetness. You saw it. And you screamed. He shook his head. I didn't scream. I didn't. The sheet slipped back. The thing on the bed wasn't a person. It wore a face. His face. But wrong. Pale, eyes hollow and red-rimmed, mouth stretched into a wide O like it was mid-scream. His uniform. His scar. Even his security badge, dangling crookedly from the neck. It reached for him. He turned to run. But the door was gone. Not closed, gone. Just more wall now, as if it had never existed. He slammed his fists against it. Help! Somebody! Anyone! The lights overhead turned red. The clock ticked again, somewhere behind him, maybe inside him now. Tick. Tock. Tick. Tock. Then the figure behind him screamed. It was him. His voice. Amplified. Raw. Agony and rage and terror. It shattered the overhead light, spraying sparks. He collapsed to the floor, hands clamped over his ears, and everything went black. Silence. Then, a voice. Small. Childlike. Right by his ear. You shouldn't let it see you scream. Isaac sat up with a gasp. He was in the security hub. Back in his chair. Monitors buzzing. Radio crackling. 4:07 a.m. No sign of room 304. No sign of any of it. He blinked at the monitors. Camera 12, the ICU wing, was static again. But this time, in the middle of the screen, he saw a Polaroid, taped directly over the lens. A picture of him, standing outside room 304. Mouth open. Eyes gone. Written below in shaky ink. Next time, don't run. He could almost feel the texture of the Polaroid just by looking at it. The matte paper, the smudged ink, the grainy photo. His likeness stared back at him from the screen, caught mid-howl, eyes like hollow voids carved from flesh. The message burned brighter in his mind than the white glare of the screen. Next time, don't run. He rose from his chair too fast, knocking it over. His knees wobbled as he stepped back. The room was the same, cold fluorescent lights, hum of old wiring, the faint scent of coffee from the empty mug beside the monitors. But something was off. Like the room had tilted imperceptibly sideways. Like he was being watched from behind every camera. His hand shook as he reached for the radio. Dispatch, this is Isaac at Halston General. I need someone to come here. Now. There's something wrong with the ICU wing. Room 304. You hear me? A long pause. Then click. Static. Then a voice. But not dispatch. Room 304 was sealed 10 years ago. The voice said calmly, almost gently. After the fire. There's nothing there now but ashes and time. The radio went dead. Isaac stared at it. His throat tightened. No, he whispered. I was just there. He yanked open the door to the security hub and ran through the hallways. Footsteps echoing too loudly, bouncing back with strange distortion, as if they didn't belong to him anymore. The corridors all felt longer, stretched somehow, too many doors, too few lights. He reached the ICU elevator again. It stood open. Waiting. Isaac stared into it. The panel inside was normal now. 1, 2, 3, 4. No -1. No flickering lights. He stepped in. Pressed 4. The ride was silent. Smooth. Normal. When the doors opened, the hallway was just as he remembered it. Blank white walls, quiet machines humming behind closed patient doors. But room 304 was different. The warning tape was back. The door was sealed. Boarded up with rotted plywood and 6-inch nails, like something had tried to force its way out, and someone had panicked to stop it. And above it all, scrawled in charcoal across the wood. You opened the clock. A whimper escaped his throat. He turned, and every other door on the floor had opened. All at once. Every room. A dozen doors. Silent. Patient. Waiting. From each one, someone stepped out. Doctors. Nurses. Patients. All of them wrong. All with mouths agape and eyes missing. All of them holding clocks. Small ones. Pocket watches. Wristwatches. Kitchen timers. And all ticking. In unison. One step forward. Then another. And Isaac stood in the middle, time running out. Tick. Tock. Tick. Tock. The sound filled the corridor, overlapping into a maddening rhythm. Each clock a voice, each voice part of a language he didn't understand but instinctively feared. Isaac stepped back, bumping into the elevator doors, which immediately slid shut behind him. Trapped. The figures advanced in perfect unison, their gaits robotic but steady, as if choreographed by something ancient. Their faces bore no recognition, no anger, just the blank, unblinking calm of inevitability. As if his presence was not surprising, but expected. Isaac turned to run, but found his legs refused. The air was thick, syrupy, dragging against every muscle like invisible hands holding him in place. He screamed. And then he remembered the photo. The warning. Don't let it see you scream. Too late. The ticking stopped. Everything stopped. In a single, sickening instant, all of the figures froze mid-step. Heads snapped toward him, every one of them. Mouths stretched impossibly wide. The clocks in their hands shattered in unison, tiny shards of glass and metal hanging in the air like suspended snow. Then silence. For 3 seconds. Then the hallway bent. Isaac felt the floor buckle, the walls pulse, the ceiling breathe. Reality itself warped around him. The lights above flickered red. Then black. Then he was somewhere else. Not the hospital. Not anywhere he'd ever seen. A long corridor of impossible geometry stretched before him, narrowing toward a distant point where a single grandfather clock stood at the far end. Floating. Turning slowly in midair. The floor beneath his feet was made of old photographs, thousands of Polaroids, each one showing room 304 from a different angle, in different decades. The walls breathed, stitched together from bandages and crumbling brick. Time didn't feel right here. It didn't move right. Behind him, something followed. He didn't look back. He couldn't. Looking back meant seeing it. Seeing it meant screaming. And screaming meant tick, tock. The pendulum at the far end began to swing. Isaac walked forward, step by cautious step, each foot crunching a different version of himself underfoot. There he was in one photo, sleeping in the security office. In another, sitting calmly at a desk. And in another, older, gray, staring blankly into the lens, face slack with despair. He kept walking. Because the sound behind him was getting louder. It was coming. And the clock ahead wasn't counting time anymore. It was waiting. Isaac's breathing came fast and shallow, the kind that only made panic worse. His ribs felt like they were being squeezed from the inside. The corridor kept stretching. Every time he took a step, the clock ahead seemed just as far, never closer, only deeper. Floating in the stillness. Pendulum swinging, but no sound now. No ticking. Just the pressure. Behind him, the dragging sound had grown louder. It didn't walk. It pulled itself forward. Wet and uneven. Like muscle over raw bone, scraping across time itself. He felt a ripple pass through the corridor as it moved. Isaac shut his eyes and kept going. Don't look back. Don't even blink too long. There was no sense of gravity anymore, no direction. Just the corridor, the clock, the photos underfoot, and the sense that he was not supposed to be here. He stepped on a photo where he looked older, gray in his beard, a security badge still pinned to his chest. In the photo, he was sitting in room 304, just staring at the clock. Mouth closed. Dead eyes. Behind him in the photo, barely visible through the grain, the silhouette of something wrong, whispering into his ear. Isaac pressed on. The air grew warmer as he neared the clock. Not comforting warmth, fever warmth. Hospital death warmth. He squinted against a sudden blast of blinding gold light. And then it spoke. Not in words. Not even in sound. In memory. Suddenly he was 5, standing at his grandfather's funeral, confused by the silence. Then he was 10, watching the nurse pull a sheet over his mother's body. Then 16, staring at the hospital clock after his sister's overdose. Every moment of stillness in his life, every moment marked by time, crashed into his mind like a flood. All at once. And in every one of those memories, now he saw it. A figure. Standing somewhere in the background. Watching him. It had always been there. He stumbled. Fell to his knees. The floor gave way. He didn't fall down. He fell sideways, like gravity had changed its mind. And when he landed, he was back in the ICU. Room 304. The bed was empty. The walls were blank. And the clock was right in front of him. Not floating now. Just waiting. The hands moved, both ticking toward the same number. 304. As they aligned, Isaac's chest seized. He couldn't breathe. The air felt thick with dust and smoke, like just before a fire. And then, a whisper beside him. "You're almost home." And then the room was full. Not with people. With time. It hung thick in the air, seconds looping in on themselves, stuttering forward and then jerking backward. A nurse in the corner blinked into existence, dropped a tray, then rewound into nothing. An elderly patient flickered into the bed, mouth open, screaming silently before dissolving like ash. Isaac stumbled to his feet. This wasn't just a haunting. It was a fracture. He was inside the wound left by the fire. Inside a scar in time. The door to room 304 swung open behind him. He didn't touch it. A hallway stretched out on the other side, but not the one he came from. This one was impossibly long, narrow, lined with mirrors on both sides. And in each mirror was him. Dozens of versions. Different ages. Different expressions. Some calm. Some terrified. Some broken. And one of them was smiling. Not kindly. With teeth. Isaac stepped forward. The ticking of the clock grew louder again, closer, even though he had walked away from it. Like it wasn't just a clock anymore. Like it was following. Each step he took down the mirrored hallway, the reflection that smiled stepped with him. He began to run. The lights overhead burst in a cascade, showering sparks. In the mirrors, some versions of him ran too. Others stayed behind. One reached toward the glass, hand pressed flat, mouth opening. Isaac turned sharply into a side door that hadn't been there a moment before. It led to the morgue. Rows of cold storage drawers lined the walls. The air was deathly still. He pressed his back to the wall, panting. "It's not real! It's not real!" One of the drawers creaked open. Metal on metal. Then another. And another. Until 6 drawers yawned open in unison. Empty. Waiting. Behind him, he heard a talk. Not from a clock. From a throat. He turned, heart pounding. And there, standing inches away, was the version of him from the Polaroid. Eyes hollow. Mouth wide. Smiling. Isaac couldn't move. The air between him and his smiling double was solid, like glass. The thing wearing his face tilted its head slightly, bones creaking audibly, as though the body didn't know how to mimic human movement anymore. Its smile never broke. Then, without blinking, it stepped forward. Isaac shoved himself off the wall, slipping on the cold tile floor, his boots skidding. He didn't look back, he couldn't. He sprinted past the open morgue drawers, their hollow metal mouths gaping, and burst through a door that hadn't been there a moment ago. Another hallway. This one was narrow, endless, pulsing red like a living artery. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering to the rhythm of a heartbeat that wasn't his. Photographs lined both walls, more Polaroids, dozens of them. All of room 304. All of the clock. All of him. In some, he was sleeping. In others, screaming. And in a few, he was being watched, the faceless figure always somewhere in the background, closer each time. He reached the end of the hallway and found a single elevator. The call button glowed faintly. He hit it. The doors opened. Inside stood his reflection again, but this time it wasn't smiling. It was crying. Blood streamed from its eyes, and its mouth worked silently like it wanted to speak but had forgotten how. The lights inside the elevator flickered red, then black, then red again. Isaac didn't step in. Instead, he looked down, and saw the number carved into the elevator floor. 304. The air turned sour, and the pendulum sound returned, clang, clang, but louder now. Faster. The walls of the hallway cracked like eggshells, thin fractures forming spiderwebs across them. Behind the walls something moved. A shape. Huge. Writhing. Clock gears the size of fists, spinning on bones. Screams filtered through the cracks, distorted by time, trapped in loops. He turned and ran. The hallway collapsed behind him. Reality peeled away. Then he was standing in the middle of the hospital lobby. Empty. Quiet. The clock on the wall read 6:02 a.m. Shift change. Morning sunlight filtered through the glass doors, warm and golden. His radio crackled. Security to main lobby. Isaac, you there? He brought it to his mouth with shaking fingers. Why, yeah. I'm here. You good, man? You missed check-in? Thought you passed out on us. I think I did, he muttered, eyes scanning the quiet room. Everything looked normal. No photos. No mirrors. No blood. Just nurses arriving, coffee in hand. Just people. Just... The front desk clerk looked up at him. She smiled. Her mouth was too wide. And she wore a wristwatch. It ticked. Out of sync with every other clock in the building. Isaac froze. The ticking from the clerk's wristwatch was faint but unmistakable, sharp, deliberate, like each second struck a chisel deeper into the surface of something buried. He stared at her, waiting for some sign, some acknowledgement. But she simply returned to her paperwork, flipping through the morning intake forms. Ordinary. Casual. Too casual. He stepped forward, slow, cautious. Hey, he said, voice low. What time do you have? She looked up. Her eyes were pale. Too pale. Almost white, but not quite, like clouds hiding something behind them. She glanced at her watch. 3:04. He felt his stomach turn to lead. Isaac backed away, heart pounding. He looked to the wall clock above the nurse's station. It read 6:03. Another behind reception, 6:03. But her watch. 3:04. That damn number again. It followed him like a shadow that always fell in front of him. He bolted through the staff doors, past two nurses who gave him wide-eyed stares. Down the corridor, toward the security office. As he passed the waiting room, he noticed something in his peripheral vision. The television was on. Static buzzed and rolled across the screen. And in the middle of the static, just for a moment, his own face. Eyes missing. Screaming silently. He burst into the security room, slammed the door, and locked it. Monitor still on. Camera 12 still blank. Still taped over with the same Polaroid. His photo. The message had changed. You let it in. Isaac staggered back, knocking over his chair again. He turned in a circle, scanning the room. Everything was normal. The drawers. The monitors. The coffee mug. But something was wrong. A subtle distortion in the reflection of the window beside the monitors. He moved closer. His own face stared back, but then blinked after he did. His reflection smiled. The lights shut off. Total blackness. And then the pendulum. Clang. Right behind him. He turned slowly, dread swallowing his thoughts. The clock was there. Standing in the middle of the room. Where his desk had been. Pendulum swinging. Hands pointed at 3:04. His voice, his exact voice, spoke behind him. Time is a loop. He turned. He faced himself. Same uniform. Same face. But older. Deeper lines. Tired eyes. Cold. Don't fight it, the older Isaac said. You saw it. It saw you. Now you're part of the mechanism. Isaac shook his head. No. I'm getting out of this. The older him stepped forward. Don't you remember? This already happened. He raised a Polaroid. It showed Isaac, present-day Isaac, standing in this room. A moment frozen. Mouth open. Eyes gone. Isaac's breath caught in his throat as the older version of himself held up the Polaroid, the faint sheen of flashbulb light illuminating the terrified face in the picture. It was him, frozen in the exact moment between life and oblivion, mouth stretched wide, eyes vacant. "This is where you are now," the older Isaac said softly, voice thick with exhaustion. "Trapped inside time's wound. You can't run from it. You can't escape it. All the moments you thought were real, before this, after this, they're just echoes. We're the clock's hands, and it's always ticking us closer to midnight." Isaac's mind spun. "No," he whispered. "There has to be a way out. I'm not a part of this. I'm real." Older Isaac shook his head. "You're as real as the hour that never passes. Room 304. The fire. The clock. It's all one thing. And it's waiting for you to let it finish." Isaac's eyes darted to the grandfather clock, pendulum swinging steadily, casting long, warped shadows on the walls. The hands inched toward midnight. With each tick, a faint humming filled the air, a low, mournful chorus that seemed to wrap itself around his chest. "Fight it," Isaac said, voice stronger now, defiance blooming despite the weight of despair. Older Isaac smiled sadly. "You can try." Suddenly, the room rippled again. The clock's pendulum swung faster, faster, thud thud thud, until it blurred into a line of shimmering silver. The walls cracked open like paper. Time tore itself apart. Isaac felt himself being pulled into the vortex, memories flooding. Faces, screams, light and shadow, moments he had lived and moments he hadn't. He closed his eyes and screamed. When he opened them again, he was back. In the hospital's security office. Sunlight streamed through the windows. The clock on the wall read 6 a.m. Isaac's radio crackled to life. "Morning, Isaac. You all right? You missed your last check-in." He looked around. Everything was normal. No Polaroids. No clocks out of sync. No faceless figures. No whispers. Isaac exhaled, a shaky laugh escaping his lips. "Yeah," he said softly. "I'm fine." He reached for his coffee mug, and the clock on the wall ticked once more. Tick. Tock. And somewhere, deep inside the hospital, a pendulum swung, steady, patient, and eternal. The graveyard clock was still waiting. Story 2, The Last Call. The clock in the dispatch center glowed 11:58 p.m., and the soft buzz of fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Jenna adjusted the headset over her ears, rubbing the tension from her neck. The night shift at the city's 911 call center was always slow around midnight. People asleep, streets empty, emergencies fewer. But the calm always felt fragile, like the eye of a storm waiting to break. Tonight Jenna was alone. Her partner had called in sick, and management decided it was a good opportunity to see if she could handle the night solo. She wasn't thrilled but needed the extra hours. Her fingers hovered over the console, poised to answer whatever came through. 2 minutes to midnight. She was about to reach for her coffee when the phone shrilled. Jenna blinked and snapped to attention. The screen flashed. 911 incoming, priority 1. 911, what's your emergency? Jenna said, voice calm but firm. Static. Heavy breathing. A whisper, barely audible. Then a voice, ragged, trembling. Help, please. I'm trapped. Ma'am, can you tell me your location? Silence. The line crackled. Then the voice whispered again. Last call, don't answer, or you're next. The call dropped. Jenna's fingers trembled on the console. The screen flashed again. 911 incoming. Unknown caller. Her heartbeat quickened. She pressed the button to answer. Hello? Hello? Who's this? A deep, hollow voice replied. No one you want to speak to. Static buzzed through the speaker, twisting into faint, discordant sounds, an old song, slowed down and warped. Why are you calling? Jenna asked, swallowing the lump in her throat. The voice chuckled, low and cold. You picked up the last call. Jenna's hands clenched the desk edge. What last call? The one that never ends. The line went dead. The silence in the room deepened, thick and heavy. Jenna glanced at the clock. 12 a.m. Her phone vibrated. A text message. Next call in 5 minutes. She stared at the screen. And somewhere behind her, the old rotary phone on the wall began to ring. Jenna's breath hitched as the shrill ring of the rotary phone echoed through the dispatch center. She hadn't heard it ring in years. Not since the system was fully digitized. But there it was, shrieking like a banshee from the corner of the room. Her eyes darted toward the dusty black phone mounted on the wall, its cord coiled like a dormant snake. Her fingers trembled, hovering over the handset. 5 minutes, the text had said. Another ring. She swallowed hard and lifted the receiver. Hello? Her voice was barely above a whisper. Silence. Then, a faint crackle. A whisper, barely audible over static. Do you hear me? Jenna froze. The voice was distant but unmistakably human, fragile and urgent. Yes, I hear you. Where are you? Trapped. The word was slow, dragged out, dripping with despair. Between the calls. Waiting. What do you mean? Who is this? A soft sob. Don't stay too long, or you'll be the last call. Static swallowed the line. The rotary phone clicked dead. Jenna lowered the receiver, hands shaking. She glanced at the clock. 12:05 a.m. Her phone buzzed again. Another text. Next call in 10 minutes. The quiet stretched. Then her console beeped. A new call. Jenna answered. 911, what's your emergency? A chilling whisper floated through. Do you want to play a game? Jenna's blood ran cold. Sir, please. Static. The line went dead. The lights flickered. And then the call came again. And again. Endless calls. Each more desperate. Each more haunted. Each more real. Jenna realized, with growing horror, she wasn't dealing with emergencies. She was dealing with something else. Something, waiting. For the last call. Jenna's fingers hovered over the console, heart pounding like a warning drum in her chest. The calls kept coming, one after another, a steady drip of whispered voices, ragged breaths, faint cries echoing through the headset. She answered each with the same calm, practiced professionalism. 911, what's your emergency? But the answers never came. Just silence. Or the crackle of static. Or worse. The soft, chilling whispers of people who seemed to be trapped somewhere unseen, somewhere endless. Minutes felt like hours. The clock ticked relentlessly. Then came the voice that made her freeze, a child, no older than 7, whispering from the darkness. Help me! Please help me! Jenna leaned forward. Where are you, sweetheart? Can you tell me your location? Static crackled. The voice shifted, warping into something darker. You called me. Now you're here. The line went dead. Her breath caught. Her head snapped toward the rotary phone. It was ringing again. Slow, methodical rings. 3. Then 4. The same pattern as the time, 3:04. Jenna's pulse surged. She didn't want to answer, but curiosity, and something darker, compelled her. The moment she lifted the receiver, 1,000 voices flooded her mind. Screams. Laughter. Cries. All overlapping, twisting into a horrifying symphony. Who's there? She whispered. A voice came through, a voice she recognized, but shouldn't have. Jenna. Her own voice. Whispering back. Don't let the last call be yours. The line went silent. The lights flickered violently and then went out. She was left alone in the darkness, heart pounding against ribs like a trapped animal. Somewhere, far away, the rotary phone rang again. Once. Twice. Then a third time. The last call. Jenna's hands trembled as the darkness swallowed the dispatch center whole. The glow from the console was the only light, casting eerie shadows across the cluttered desk and rows of silent, lifeless screens. The hum of electricity felt fragile, like it could snap at any moment. Her breath was ragged, heart hammering in her ears. She was alone. Or so she thought. The rotary phone rang again. Relentlessly. One ring. Two rings. She forced herself to pick up, whispering, "Who's there?" Silence. Then a low, guttural chuckle. Like something crawling from beneath the earth. A voice, rough and broken, rasped, "You answered. Now the game begins." Before she could respond, the line went dead. Suddenly, every screen flickered on. A collage of faces filled the monitors, people from past calls, past emergencies, frozen in moments of terror. Some stared directly at her. Others screamed silently. Jenna staggered back. One monitor flashed a number, 304. Another showed a distorted image of the old rotary phone, ringing. A third revealed a flickering hallway, dark, endless, and filled with shadows moving just beyond the light. The phone rang again. Jenna's eyes locked on the receiver. She reached for it, fingers shaking. 911, she whispered. "What do you want from me?" Static. Then the voice, childlike, desperate. "Don't be the last." Suddenly, the room plunged into freezing cold. Her breath crystallized in the air. She spun around, heart racing, to see the back door creak open. A figure stepped inside. Pale, blurred at the edges. Face obscured in shadow. It raised a hand. Slowly. Pointed at the console. "Time's up," it whispered. Jenna realized the truth. The last call wasn't just a call. It was a trap. And tonight, she was answering. Jenna's heart hammered so loudly she was sure the thing behind her could hear it. The figure didn't move closer. It just stood there, watching, its presence a cold, heavy weight in the air. She forced herself to turn. The shadowed face was just a void, featureless, dark, impossible to focus on. "Who are you?" Jenna's voice cracked. The figure's hand lowered, fingers curling slowly like smoke in water. Suddenly, the phones across the room screamed to life. Rotary, cell, landlines, all ringing at once, a deafening cacophony that fractured the silence like broken glass. Jenna covered her ears, stumbling back against the wall, eyes wild. "Answer me," the voice whispered, but it wasn't the figure. It was all the voices from the calls, layered over each other in a maddening symphony. One voice was clear amidst the chaos, a child's, pleading. "Help me! Please help me!" Jenna's fingers flew across the console, frantically trying to silence the ringing, but nothing worked. The phones kept ringing, the voices grew louder, drowning her in despair and panic. And then, a sudden silence. The figure was gone. In its place was the old rotary phone, softly ringing, once. Jenna picked up, breathless. A soft voice whispered, "Welcome to the last call." The line went dead. The screens went black. The room plunged into darkness. And Jenna was alone, waiting for the next call. Jenna sat frozen in the darkness, the silence pressing against her like a physical weight. The hum of the emergency generator was the only sound, steady, mechanical, almost reassuring. But she knew better. The next call was coming. She could feel it crawling beneath her skin, creeping closer with every breath. Minutes passed, or maybe seconds. Time had lost its meaning. Then, the console beeped. One call. Two calls. Three. The headset snapped to life in her trembling hands. 911, what's your emergency? A faint, strained voice answered. Trapped, can't get out. Static hissed. The Jenna's fingers hovered over the rotary phone's receiver, a cold sweat slicking her palms. The ringing was slow and deliberate, each peal echoing through the empty dispatch center like a death knell. She forced herself to grasp the handset, lifting it with trembling hands. 911, what's your emergency? She breathed, her voice barely steady. Static filled the line. Then, a familiar whisper, faint but unmistakable. Don't be the last. Jenna's heart slammed against her ribs. The voice was hers, only warped, fractured, like an echo from a nightmare. Who is this? She asked, desperation seeping into her words. A soft chuckle, childlike but chilling, followed. You already answered. The line went dead. The monitors flickered violently, and a new image flashed on the central screen, a distorted, grainy photo of Jenna, taken from behind. She was standing in the dispatch center, alone. But the photo had a shadow. A dark, formless shape looming just behind her. Jenna spun around, breath catching. The room was empty. Too empty. The lights dimmed further, and the old rotary phone began to ring again. 3 rings. 4 rings. And then, silence. But the feeling of being watched crept over her. Jenna realized, with a sinking dread, that the last call was no longer just a voice on the line. It was something here. With her. Waiting. Watching. Ready to claim her. Jenna's pulse pounded in her ears, drowning out the faint hum of the dispatch center. She refused to turn around again, certain whatever haunted her was lurking just beyond sight, patient, silent, hungry. Her hands gripped the console as if it were a lifeline. Her breathing slowed, muscles tensed. The rotary phone's shrill ring pierced the silence, faster now, like a frantic heartbeat. 1 ring. 2. 3. 4. She couldn't resist. Her fingers moved of their own accord, snatching the receiver from the cradle. 911, she whispered. Welcome back. The voice rasped, thick with menace. Jenna's breath caught. It was not her voice this time. Do you want to know why you're here? She swallowed hard, fear prickling at her skin. There is no last call. The voice continued. Because we are the last call. We never leave. We never end. The lights flickered and dimmed. The monitors glowed red, casting monstrous shadows on the walls. Faces, twisted, desperate, flickered across the screens. Jenna's heart threatened to burst. She wanted to scream, to run. But the voice whispered one last warning. Answer once more, and you join us forever. The line went dead. Silence fell, deep and suffocating. And then, the rotary phone began ringing again. Jenna's trembling fingers hovered over the receiver, every instinct screaming at her to let it ring and hope it stopped. But she couldn't. The compulsion was too strong, a magnetic pull she couldn't resist. Her breath hitched as she lifted the handset. 911, she said, voice shaking. The line crackled. A faint, eerie melody played. A warped lullaby, slowed to an unnatural crawl, like a music box drowning underwater. Then the voice spoke, soft, coaxing, impossibly close. Do you hear the calls? They never stop. We are the voices in the silence, the echoes in the static. Jenna's skin crawled. Who are you? She asked, voice barely a whisper. We are the forgotten, the lost. Those who answered the last call and never left. Static roared, and the connection wavered. Suddenly, the room seemed to twist, the walls bending inward, the shadows stretching longer. On the monitors, faces flickered, emaciated, haunted, eyes hollow. They stared. And then, one voice, clear and urgent, pierced the darkness. Jenna, don't be next. The line went dead. Jenna dropped the receiver. Her eyes darted to the clock. 3:04 a.m. The rotary phone began ringing again. And she knew this night would never end. Jenna's breath caught in her throat as the relentless ringing of the rotary phone shattered the heavy silence once more. The ringing wasn't just a sound anymore. It was a summons, a pulse of dark energy that vibrated through her bones. Her hands shook uncontrollably as she reached for the receiver. Before she could lift it, the office lights flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness. A cold whisper curled around her ear. "Welcome to forever." The monitors blinked back to life, displaying a looping video feed of the dispatch center, except it was empty. No Jenna. Just the echo of a shadow moving slowly across the room. The temperature dropped. Her breath misted in the air. Suddenly, the doors slammed shut with a deafening bang. Jenna spun around, heart racing. No one was there. The rotary phone's ringing slowed to a single, ominous toll. She forced herself to answer. 911, she whispered. "Do you hear us?" Came the chorus of voices, layered and overlapping, their tones mournful and accusing. "Forever trapped in the last call," they intoned. The room seemed to stretch infinitely in all directions, shadows folding into themselves. Jenna realized the truth with a sinking horror. The last call wasn't just a line on the phone. It was a place, a prison. And she was trapped. Jenna's fingers clung to the receiver as if it was the last tether to reality. The voices on the line echoed, growing louder and more desperate, layered like the cries of 1,000 trapped souls. "We are the calls unanswered, the voices forgotten, the last echoes before silence." Her vision blurred. The walls of the dispatch center melted away, replaced by an endless void of static and whispering voices. She was floating, weightless and powerless. Suddenly, a cold hand gripped her wrist. She jerked awake with a gasp, heart pounding. Her head lolled toward the source. A figure stood at the edge of the room, barely visible, a woman in an old, faded uniform, her eyes hollow and pleading. "Don't answer," the apparition whispered. Jenna shook her head. "I have to." The ghost smiled sadly. "You already did." The rotary phone rang one last time. The line went dead. Jenna slumped in her chair, trapped in the cycle, forever the voice answering the last call. Story 3: Shadows on the Watch. The night was unusually quiet at the Riverside Power Plant, the hum of generators a low, steady drone under the thick blanket of darkness. Tom adjusted his safety vest and wiped a bead of sweat from his brow, despite the cool night air. Third shift was always lonely. The only other soul for miles was the night security guard, Harold, whose gruff voice occasionally crackled over the radio. Tom glanced at the clock on the control panel. 11:47 p.m. He liked these hours, when the city outside slept, and the plant's massive machines kept the lights alive for thousands. But tonight something felt off. The shadows in the corner of the control room seemed deeper, darker, more alive. He shook it off. Just nerves. The plant's old wiring sometimes caused his mind to play tricks. The radio crackled. "Tom? You there?" Harold's voice broke through. "Yeah, just checking gauges. All quiet." There was a pause. "Good. Keep an eye out. Heard some weird noises by the cooling tower earlier. Could be animals." Tom smirked. "Or ghosts." "Ha! If there's ghosts, I want my overtime." Tom laughed softly and turned back to the control panel. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The hum dipped. A cold draft swept through the room. Tom's skin prickled. He looked toward the door. Harold wasn't there. The radio went dead. And from the shadows, something watched. Tom's breath hitched. The dead radio hissed with static, then fell silent, as if swallowed by the thick darkness pressing against the walls. He called out, "Harold? You still there?" His voice sounded small, swallowed by the cavernous control room. No answer. The air grew colder, an unnatural chill seeping into his bones. Tom's eyes darted to the security monitors lining the wall. Rows of black and white feeds from cameras scattered across the plant. Most showed empty halls, silent machinery, or the steel skeleton of the cooling tower bathed in moonlight. Except one. The camera focused on the maintenance tunnel near the north end. A shadow moved just beyond the floodlight's reach, too large to be an animal, too slow and deliberate to be human. Tom's hand trembled as he keyed the radio. "Harold, where are you? Come in." Static. No reply. The shadow flickered, then disappeared. Tom swallowed hard, the lump in his throat growing. The power plant was old, full of creaking pipes and rusting metal, but this felt different, alive. Something was inside. Watching. Waiting. Suddenly, the emergency siren blared, a deep, wailing cry that shook the walls. Tom's heart leapt. The control panel flashed red. A fault in the cooling system. He grabbed the intercom. "Harold, report." No response. Alarms echoed in his ears as the shadow reappeared on the monitor, closer now, creeping along the tunnel wall. No face, no features, just a dark smear moving with unnatural fluidity. Tom's skin crawled. He reached for the flashlight, but the beam flickered and died. The shadow crossed the frame and vanished. The emergency lights kicked in, bathing the room in sickly red. Tom was alone. And something was coming for him. Tom's breath caught as the emergency lights cast deep, pulsating shadows across the control room. The red glow flickered like a dying heartbeat, warping familiar shapes into sinister silhouettes. He grabbed a spare flashlight from the desk and flicked it on. The beam sliced through the gloom, but the length of the control room remained empty. No sign of Harold. "Harold!" Tom called out again, voice tighter now. Only the echo answered. A metallic clang echoed from the maintenance tunnel, sharp and sudden. His blood ran cold. He moved cautiously toward the door leading to the tunnel, flashlight steady but hands shaking. The tunnel beyond was a narrow passage lined with corroded pipes, the concrete floor slick with condensation. The air smelled sharp, like ozone and rust. Tom's footsteps echoed loudly as he advanced, the beam catching glimpses of crawling vines of shadow flitting along the walls. A whisper floated through the tunnel, too faint to make out. His name? Or a warning? He froze. Ahead, a figure stood motionless beneath a flickering light. Harold. Or at least, it looked like him. Harold's face was pale, eyes wide and glassy. "Tom," the figure whispered, voice hollow. "They're here. They watch. They wait. You can't hide." Before Tom could respond, the figure dissolved into a cloud of black mist, swirling upward into the flickering light. A sudden crash echoed behind him. He spun around. The tunnel was empty. Only darkness remained. His radio crackled to life. "Tom? Tom, do you copy?" It was Harold. Alive. But somewhere else. "Get out," the voice whispered urgently, breaking up with static. "Get out now." Tom's flashlight flickered. The shadows surged. He ran. Tom's footsteps pounded against the damp concrete as he sprinted through the maintenance tunnel, the flashlight beam darting wildly ahead. The walls seemed to close in, the shadows crawling closer with every step, twisting and writhing like living things. His breath came in ragged gasps, heart hammering in his chest. Behind him, the sound of something chasing, slow, scraping footsteps that never quite matched his pace but never fell behind. He didn't dare look back. Ahead, the tunnel forked. He hesitated, sweat blurring his vision. "Left or right?" he whispered to himself. A voice crackled through his radio, Harold's. "Tom, listen! The ventilation shaft on the right leads to the emergency exit. I'll meet you there." Tom swallowed hard, steeling himself. Right it was. He turned. The shadows thickened. Forms shifted in the periphery, tall, faceless shapes reaching out with impossibly long fingers. The walls echoed with whispers, soft, unintelligible, but filled with menace. He broke into a desperate run, lungs burning. At the shaft's entrance, rusted and half open, a cold wind swept past. Tom clambered in, the metal groaning beneath him. Behind him, the shadows pressed against the tunnel entrance, motionless. He shimmied through the narrow passage, every scrape of metal sending jolts of pain through his arms. Finally, a grate of fresh air. He pushed himself out into the night, gulping the cold, clean breeze. The plant loomed behind him, a dark, brooding silhouette against the moonlit sky. His radio crackled again. "Tom, are you out?" "Yes," he gasped. "Good," Harold's voice said, relief heavy in the static. "They don't like it when we leave." Tom looked back once. The shadows lingered at the tunnel's mouth, waiting, watching, and the night had just begun. Tom's legs trembled as he stood under the pale moonlight, the cold night air sharp in his lungs. He forced himself to focus, wiping the sweat and grime from his face, trying to shake the lingering dread that clung to his skin like a second shadow. The radio crackled softly. Harold's voice came through, steady but strained. "Tom, you made it out. Listen, don't trust the cameras. They're altered. The shadows can manipulate them, trap you inside the feeds." Tom swallowed hard. "What the hell is happening, Harold?" A long pause, then Harold sighed, low and weary. "Years ago, there was an accident here. A section of the plant collapsed, buried a crew deep underground. No one found them. The official report said they were lost in a fire, but the plant never stopped whispering after that. Shadows started showing up on the cameras, people hearing voices during night shifts. Some swore the old tunnels were haunted. I didn't believe it until tonight." Tom glanced back toward the dark silhouette of the plant. "And those shadows? They're not ghosts." "Not exactly. More like something born from fear, from the place itself. They feed on your mind, your hope. They watch, wait, and when they catch you alone, they pull you in." A shiver ran down Tom's spine. "Harold, what do I do?" "Get to the surface. Don't look back. Don't answer anything you hear. And whatever you do, don't become the next shadow." Static filled the radio. Then silence. Tom's gaze swept the dark horizon. The shadows still lingered at the plant's edge, writhing like smoke. And the night was far from over. Tom's feet crunched on gravel as he made his way along the perimeter road, the cold night air biting at his skin. The sprawling plant loomed behind him, a monolithic beast shrouded in darkness. The faint glow of warning lights blinked intermittently, like distant eyes watching his every move. The radio remained silent. Harold must have lost signal. He quickened his pace, muscles burning with exhaustion and dread. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught his eye near the tree line. He stopped, shining his flashlight toward the shadows. Nothing. Just the rustling of leaves. But then, a whisper, barely audible, seemed to rise from the ground itself. "Tom!" The voice was soft, pleading. Tom's heart lurched. "Who's there?" he called out. Silence. The whisper came again, closer now. "Come back!" He shook his head, pressing forward. The road curved, leading to the main gate. As he approached, the security booth sat empty, the lights inside flickering. He reached the gate keypad. The screen displayed, "Access denied." His fingers flew over the buttons, then stopped. A sudden chill wrapped around him. From the shadows, the formless figure emerged, shape-shifting, flickering like a broken hologram. Its face was a void, featureless and black. It extended a hand, long, spindly fingers like smoke tendrils. Tom stumbled back, breath catching. The figure whispered, voice layered with echoes. "You can't leave. Not yet." The radio crackled alive again. Harold's voice strained. Tom! The emergency exit is locked down. We need to find another way. Tom swallowed hard. The shadows moved closer. The night wasn't ready to let him go. Tom's chest tightened as the shadowy figure glided forward, its form rippling like smoke caught in a breeze. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but the weight of exhaustion and fear pinned him in place. He backed toward the dense tree-line, eyes darting for any escape. Harold's voice crackled again over the radio. Tom, listen carefully. There's an old maintenance hatch near the southeast corner, behind the transformer yard. It's sealed, but I might be able to override it remotely. Tom nodded, even though Harold couldn't see him. Can you get there? Harold asked. I'll try, Tom whispered, turning away from the creeping shadow. The figure hissed, a sound like dry leaves scraping concrete, and melted into the darkness. Tom ran, branches whipping his face, heart pounding so fiercely it felt like it would burst. As he reached the transformer yard, the harsh hum of electricity filled the air. The hatch was a rusted steel door embedded in the ground, padlocked and covered in grime. Tom fumbled for his phone, fingers trembling as he dialed Harold. Override now, Harold instructed. A soft beep. The lock clicked. Tom heaved the heavy door open and slid inside. The air was thick, damp, and smelled of oil and decay. He shivered, the darkness swallowing him whole. The hatch slammed shut above, muffling the sounds of the outside world. In the pitch black, a faint whisper circled him. Welcome to the watch. Tom dropped into the narrow maintenance tunnel, the stale, musty air filling his lungs with a suffocating weight. The steel door slammed shut overhead, leaving him in near-total darkness. His flashlight flickered weakly before stabilizing, casting long, trembling shadows along the grimy walls. The tunnel stretched ahead, an endless ribbon of cold concrete and rusted pipes disappearing into the blackness. His radio crackled faintly, Harold's voice distant but clear. Stay calm, Tom. The emergency generators are down, but the secondary power should keep your comms alive for a while. Head toward the service elevator near the control room. It should get you to the surface. Tom swallowed hard, swallowing his fear. He moved forward, the beam of light revealing signs of decay, cracks in the walls, water pooling in places, and strange, dark stains that almost seemed to pulse. A faint sound echoed ahead, like whispering. His heart pounded. He quickened his pace. Then, a sudden shift in the air. A shadow detached itself from the tunnel wall, fluid, shifting, without form. It reached toward him with tendrils of darkness, cold like death. Tom stepped back, flashlight shaking. The shadow pulsed, then recoiled, retreating into the cracks. A voice whispered from the gloom, his own name, but warped and twisted. Tom, you can't escape. He gritted his teeth and pushed onward. The elevator doors loomed ahead. Tom pressed the call button. The old machinery groaned to life, the doors sliding open with a screech. The elevator jolted suddenly, grinding to a halt. Tom's breath caught. He pressed the emergency button, but the speaker only crackled with static. The lights flickered. From the corner of the elevator, the shadows seemed to thicken, pulsing like a living thing. A cold breath brushed against his neck. Welcome to the last descent, a whisper rasped. Tom spun around, flashlight swinging wildly. The elevator was empty. Yet the darkness seemed to press closer, suffocating. He hammered the panel. Suddenly, the elevator lurched downward. He fell against the wall, heart racing. The doors slid open onto a dimly lit corridor. Tom stepped out cautiously. The air was damp, heavy. Faint voices echoed. He followed the sounds, every step echoing ominously. Around the corner, a group of shadowy figures stood motionless, watching. Faces blurred, eyes empty. One stepped forward. Lost, it said, voice like gravel. Trapped like you? Tom's flashlight flickered and died. The darkness swallowed him whole. Cold. Silence. The absence of everything pressed against Tom's skin like a wet blanket. The flashlight was dead, and darkness bloomed around him like an ocean swallowing a small boat. He fumbled, hard hammering, reaching blindly for his radio, his only link to Harold. Static hissed through the speaker. Tom? Tom, do you copy? Harold's voice wavered, distant and strained. I'm here, Tom whispered, voice cracking. I'm in the lower tunnels. Shadows, they're everywhere. A long pause. Then, Harold's voice softened. Listen, Tom. This place is alive. It feeds on fear. It traps people, folds time and space. Those shadows, they're not just dark. They're memories, regrets, and lost souls. Tom's fingers curled into fists. How do I get out? Find the central chamber. It's the heart. Shut it down. But be careful. It won't let you go willingly. Tom forced himself forward, limbs numb, senses heightened. The tunnel twisted, walls closing in. Whispers followed him, snatches of voices, fragments of laughter and cries. He reached a heavy steel door, marked with a faded warning sign, Danger, authorized personnel only. With trembling hands he pushed it open. Inside, the central chamber hummed, a pulsing core of tangled cables, flickering lights, and a large, ominous machine at its center. Shadows writhed around it, feeding off the flickering power. Tom stepped closer. The whispers crescendoed. He gripped the main control panel. The shadows surged, screaming, reaching. With a roar, Tom slammed his hands down on the shutdown switch. The machine groaned, lights dimmed. The shadows screamed, a piercing, shattering sound. And then, silence. The chamber fell dark. Tom collapsed against the wall, gasping. He'd broken the hold. For now. But the night was still alive. And the shadows waited. Tom's breath echoed loudly in the sudden silence of the central chamber. The oppressive weight of the shadows lifted, leaving a hollow stillness in its place. The pulsing light from the core slowed, then faded, as if the heart of the darkness was finally stilled. He slumped against the cold metal wall, muscles trembling with exhaustion and relief. The air, once thick and suffocating, felt breathable again, though the chill lingered. His radio crackled faintly. Tom? Status report. Harold's voice came through, urgent but hopeful. I shut it down. Tom managed, voice raw. The shadows, they're gone. At least for now. There was a pause, then Harold sighed. Good. I'll get the emergency team to your location. You're not alone anymore. Tom glanced around the chamber one last time. The cables hung limp, the screens dark. He stood, wincing as his legs protested. As he moved toward the exit, a faint whisper brushed past his ear, a breathy voice, soft and barely audible. Thank you? Tom froze. The voice was gentle, filled with sorrow. He stepped out of the chamber into the ascending stairwell, the first rays of dawn beginning to lighten the sky above the plant. Outside, the world felt different, cleaner, freer. He looked back once, but the plant stood silent, its secrets buried once more beneath layers of shadow and steel. Tom knew the darkness wasn't gone forever. It never would be. But for now, he had won the night. And the watch was over.